Welcome to Speak Inspire TV. My name is Sharon Love, and today I'm talking with Dr. Tia Jolie Phillips. Thank you for joining me, Tia. Nice to see you again.
It's good to see you. Thank you, Sharon, for having me on your program.
So, you were just saying about how passionate you are about saving young lives. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, I think you and I share this concept or this idea that,
Yeah.
you know, what we do in our world community is significant. It's important. And part of that is not necessarily what we need for ourselves, but what we can do for other people. And what I personally look to do is to identify those people who are in the most marginalized communities, in the most exposed settings, and try to help them, try to bring them up to their next level. We can't help all the people all the time, but certainly within our reach. And so prior to the recording starting, we had this conversation about what that means to save lives. And I was sharing with you that the idea of saving lives was exactly why I started Jupiter Pride down in South Florida, 10, 12 years ago. I was so moved because there was two individuals from my son's school who had committed suicide. And in both cases, when you went backwards and looked at their social media, it was quite evident that they were most likely in the LGBTQ community. And they were simply in a position where they could not be free, they could not express, and they were quite obviously from their actions, they felt like they didn't have any choices.
Mhm.
So that's why I agreed to meet up with you in this forum, because I think more people need to comprehend that um, there is hope, and we need to expand that circle of hope and expand the net so we can actually bring these people into a central, either a node or a nexus, and provide them a resource so they can help themselves. So I don't know if that's what you wanted to hear, but that's
Yeah,
what we're talking about before you hit record. So.
exactly. So, what did you like about the idea of kind pride communities and
Well,
a
I think the
space, a
overall,
physical location where people could actually live and be themselves, be safe, be loved, and belong? What do you think about that?
I mean, I think the concept is amazing. I think in a perfect world, that would be their own home. So
Oh,
I think,
right.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, then we would
In the
have
meantime, yeah.
we'd have 7+ billion people in the world that could actually go home and live freely. But until
Mhm.
that happens, I think that the idea you would need a lot of different places, safe zones, places like that would be decentralized. So you could probably bring them all into a central location, which would be very difficult in terms of logistics. I think
Yeah.
your profile, your pattern of distributing or decentralizing the resources would be a lot better. So I think it's a good concept. I think you've thought it out pretty well, and I think that getting your message out there should be like pretty central to what your efforts are. Well, just like you're doing, just make that your central thing.
Yeah. I'm hoping it can become self-sustaining. So if a multimillionaire, billionaire decides to invest, that they're actually going to get a return on investment that could be quite high because there's a lot of seniors as well. I don't know if you've heard of this trend. Have you heard of people in the senior LGBT people who are being forced back into the closet just because they need care? Have you heard of that?
Well, I mean, I've seen stories like that throughout the news. I'm actually attached to a lot of non-mainstream news sources because I don't like people filtering my information. I like to get it all and make my own decisions. But so yeah, I totally see that happening. Um, and in terms the difficulty that people like you run into is you have this beautiful heart, you're trying to help people, but the challenge is if you have somebody that wants to see a return on investment, well, it's like, okay, so a return on investment would be a saved life. So can you first quantify for me what's the value of one saved life? Is it $1,000, $1 million, $1 billion? Like, what is one saved life worth? So if you say, well, if and that's an impossible thing because first of all, it's subjective. Second of all, for those of us like I'm a holistic natural health doctor, the idea of taking any one of your joints and trying to replicate that, it would cost you millions of dollars to replicate even the simplest movement that your body makes. So you're already intrinsically worth so much, right?
Yeah.
So there's no
And
way they
not
could
just
replace
physically,
you.
but emotionally as well. I mean, every
Yeah,
person is worth billions of dollars, in my view. Now, from
sure.
a practical perspective, I've come up with a business plan whereby it can bring a return on investment as well. So that I think that will motivate the people. I'm hoping that the combination thrive and change lives and save lives. I'm hoping that combination will motivate people to get involved and to invest.
Yeah, and I think that that's a very important thing because there is a business aspect to it, but there's also this esoteric aspect. So you're dealing with two parts of your brain. You're talking about like the financial aspect, which is a very left brain thing, and then the esoteric thing, like, hey, we're actually saving people's lives. So how you bring that together is going to be your magic, but I think that if you can find that balance and find that special somebody that group or that special one or two mega millionaires or billionaires that comprehend what you're trying to do, then I can totally see a way where this can go out. I would also suggest that technology is going to play a role. Maybe just having something that's simple, ubiquitous, some sort of an application where somebody could identify themselves as being at risk and then matching them up with
Yes.
the closest node. These are things that, like, and I've got access to a lot of these technologies already for my other work that I do, but decentralizing these communications and bringing those people in and showing them how to find resources, that's just a one-time investment. It's an upfront investment for some investor. But once that's in place, boy, you could have a very significant impact locally. So we're just freewheeling ideas here, but
Yeah.
over overall, I really like the idea. I do think that your message, if it's if it's put together properly, it'll find the correct ears, and
Yeah.
the ears will be connected to the heart, which is connected to the purse or to the wallet, and those people will do it. I think that money follows good ideas, but
Mm,
it's not just about the idea; it's also about the heart. So what you're
mm,
doing is you're trying to present to the world not only your idea but also your heart behind it, your true
mm.
love for people, and your true willingness to do the grunt work to get the connection to those people who are at risk. So I
Yeah.
think you'll have success. It's just a matter of getting the message, the heart message and the financial message kind of dovetailed together to put it out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'd love to hear more about you and your, because a lot of it is self-love and love and self-love. And that's what I've been researching and studying for over 25 years is the psychology of love and self-love. And so how did you learn to love yourself? How did you said that that was your number one proudest accomplishment was learning not being a corporate pilot, which you are, which is I think is awesome and super fun, and we can talk about that in a minute. What was the thing that got you to love yourself enough to even think, yeah, I can fly a plane?
So that's a really good question. I think the answer is that every one of us has to say, who are we and why are we here? We're going through this journey, right? This our soul's journey, right? And so I think part of our soul's journey is that we almost have to, at some point in our life, bottom out. We almost have to bottom
Yes.
out.
Yes,
And
the
it's
dark night of the soul. And yeah, so
right.
you've had one of those. Do you want to tell
And
us
for
the
me,
moment that was the turning point for you?
well, for me, um, I danced with darkness most of my life. When I was a child, I was angry, I was sad, I was depressed. All these emotions because I wasn't really allowed to talk about them. I had a beautiful family, but truthfully, they were so busy trying to make ends meet. I oftentimes felt like it didn't really matter that much. That might sound not fair because they were beautiful. My parents were amazing people, but they were just too busy, for to give five children everything they need.
Mm.
And so part of what we need is the hugs and the reassurance and the positive affirmation. Those things sometimes go by the wayside. So there comes a point in our lives where we realize it's not about having somebody else tell us we're worth it. It's that little switch inside of us that says, I no longer need somebody else to tell me I'm worth it. I'm telling me I'm worth it. See, and I think that sometimes you have to bottom out and make that decision. Am I going to depart this place on my own accord, take myself, check out? Or am, did I come this far only to come this far? And I'm going to turn the corner and become a phoenix, and I'm going to rise from the ashes and become that person I know I need to be. When I was trying to, when I was
What
a
was your
child,
Phoenix moment
well,
that
there's
made you make
multiple.
that transition? And by
Yeah,
Phoenix, you mean like becoming a corporate pilot or something like that? Or
well,
what was your Phoenix moment?
there's a whole bunch of them.
Mm,
It's because
yeah, you want to share some?
every time you get up, every time you trip and stumble and fall, skin your elbow, skin your knee, um, you know, every time you fall, the moment you get up is a micro phoenix moment, right? You're saying, I'm getting up. My accomplishments, they're like, how did you do so many things? It's like, I've decided that I'm always going to get back up, no matter what it is. So I can't define one phoenix moment because every
Tell
time
us
you get
one of
up,
them. Tell us one that you'd like to share.
well, I think the number one thing I'm most proud of is my family was not very wealthy growing up, and I was from a little child. I said, I want to fly airplanes, and so from a little child, but the people around you, they want to protect you. They don't want you to have hurt feelings because guess what? Oh, if you so few people can afford to fly airplanes, and if you go to the military or you want to fly airplanes, there's so few people qualified to do that. You might have to go to an academy, and so few people get to go to the academy, and so few people go into flight school. And so these people are trying to protect you because they don't want you to be disappointed. But my idea was like, well, if one person can go, why can't it be me?
Oh, tingles down my spine.
Right? So
Yeah.
so just so like if they say, well, 1 out of 400 are going to be selected. Okay, 1 out of 400. Why can't it be me? So I think
Wow.
that
I
so
love
to
that.
answer
High
your
five for
question,
that. That is awesome. Woohoo.
so
Yeah.
to answer your question, the idea that I from zero, no money, no support, and just very little encouragement in the aggregate, um, getting all of my pilot licenses. I've got 7 type ratings. I'm typed in corporate airplanes. I'm typed in 737, an Airbus 320. I've got all these types, which just simply
What does
means
that
you're
mean for
licensed.
people who don't know what that means? What does that mean?
So if you're going to be a commercial pilot, the type rating means that you're permitted to fly this particular airplane.
Got it. Okay.
So, and usually, like if you're flying a little Cessna or something out here, you don't need to get a type. A type rating means that your airplane is significant enough and complex enough that you need to get certified in that particular airplane. That's what a
Okay.
type rating is.
What was the
So,
most challenging moment when you on your journey a to become a corporate pilot? What was the number one thing, would you say?
well, surely, I mean, finances is always an issue.
Yeah.
Um, but
How did you
just
take
being
care
a
of that?
pilot in general, it's just like any profession. Like here you are, an entrepreneur, you're creative. You have to have 2 parts of your brain going. There's the feminine, divine feminine creative part, and then this masculine part that's like the analytical checklists, right? It's trying to get the 2 parts of your brain to dance together. So when it comes to flying airplanes and doing it well, you've got to not only understand the math and the science of doing it, but also the art, right? There's this artistic part of flying, just like being a good surgeon or a good golfer. Um, Anybody who's good at what they do, They understand the mathematical physics, they understand the structural, all of the three-dimensional stuff, they get that. But then there's also this, once you have that really well, like really well established in yourself, you take it to the next level and then you apply the artistic, the creative part, right? So it's
Mm.
one thing for you to know how to do a podcast, right? ABC 1 2 3, I know how to do it. But then there's this feminine side of you, this creator side that says, how do I make it amazing? Right? It's not just
Mm.
about making a podcast, it's about how do I make it amazing and compelling so I can get these, I can attract these people who want to make a difference. They can see my vision and my dream. They're going to invest in me so I can in turn create the system to help people, right? So it's the same thing you're doing with your podcast that made me successful as a, a corporate pilot, but also an airline captain, right? Because I was an airline captain too. So those things, there's so many airline captains that are good. What makes them good? They can take off and land an airplane safely. That's good, right? What makes them amazing? What makes them amazing is knowing the airplane inside and out. So if you hear something, you know exactly what the airplane's telling you before the light shines, before the light or the engine tells you something, right? Um, what makes you amazing as a leader, an airline captain, is knowing what your crew wants, knowing what they need, understanding, are your people nervous because there's weather out there? What can I do to make their worlds more peaceful, right? So you can
What
be
was the most challenging moment and how did you do that yourself?
oh my God. Don't get a pilot starting talk about her experiences because once a
That's
pilot
what I
starts,
want. That's it. I mean, I had that vision,
oh
right?
my
I
God,
saw I saw my father was flying planes and I was like, I want to learn how to fly planes. And I got the same
you
thing. Oh,
should
well, this
do
is how
it.
much
Come on,
it's gonna
all
cost.
right, look, this
And
is
as a
you,
kid,
this
we
is
didn't have
me.
a lot of
Okay, we'll
money.
go fly, right? So
What's that?
um, there's two seats up here, so let's go fly. Um, Flying airplanes is awesome. So
Whoa,
it,
wait,
it just
what?
depends. Like
What are you suggesting? What do you mean?
what I'm saying is, if you want to go fly, you need to do it. Just put it out there to the world and say, I want to fly airplanes and just go do it. Just tell the universe you're going to do it. And all of the resources in the universe, if you demand it of the universe, it's going to happen. It's going to happen if you demand it. So, but the most difficult thing, like for me, it just depends on what phase. Like when I was an instructor pilot, the most difficult thing was having a brand new pilot, like that's never flown a supersonic airplane, a brand new pilot that doesn't have the belief system that they can do it. Because this flying the airplane is the easy part. The 6 inches right here, between right here, that's the difficult part. Is getting them to understand that how amazing they are and that they have transferable skills, that they're 22 years old now and they've gone from 0 to 22 and they've done magnificent things already. And a lot of the magnificence that they've already expressed in their lives is simply going to be expressed in the magnificence of them going from a student pilot to a
Oh. I'm gonna say that you're probably saying, there we go. Okay, you're back.
uh, did I miss something?
Yeah, the internet connection. I am in Costa Rica. I am
Hmm.
looking at the ocean and looking at jungle trees, and every once in a while the internet here just goes out. It's across the country. So my dream, actually, my biggest dream was to come to Costa Rica and then start the kind pride communities. And I think at this point the jet is going to be a metaphor. I want to fly that jet of the kind pride communities.
Hmm.
So what do you do
Hmm.
when someone's how did you find the funding if you weren't coming from money, for example? How
Well, the only way I
did
had
you
was
say to
to,
that person who's like shaking and scared that they're, the first time they're flying that jet? What are some of the moments that you can share about your breakthroughs, your own personal breakthroughs?
well, there's only two ways that people can get into jets or flying airplanes. One of them is what I call the hard way, which is the civilian way, where they pay for their hours. They they might mow lawns at the local airport and get an hour of flying. So it's just
Mm.
paying your dues. This is the old fashioned way. Now there's scholarships and things like there's a scholarship for women. There's a group called the 99s, and the 99s is an all women's group of pilots, and they have scholarships for women. So there's ways you can find these pots of money if you're looking for them. But so you can do the civilian route. I personally went through the military route because
Ah.
I didn't have any money. Like,
Mm.
well, I had money like from my entrepreneurial things as a teenager, but it wasn't anything that could get me to flight school. So I
Mm.
went to the Air Force Academy and I went through the military training. So that's a different way of going, but I also was able to get all of my training for basically free. It wasn't free because I surrendered my freedom
Yeah,
to
which
be in the
is
service. I had to be in the
that's a big
service of
cost.
the country. So
Yeah,
it
in some
wasn't
cases it can
free.
cost people's lives. So it's yeah, that's a
Yeah.
big cost in a way. What was your scariest moment where you were just like, ah, in the whole process? It could be with flying or with something else. What was your scariest moment? What was that like, and how did you get through it?
In terms of aviation, probably the most difficult thing is when I'm flying in an airplane, like when I was an instructor, it was this airplane.
Yeah, that's scary
And
looking.
well, the thing is, it's a supersonic airplane. The Thunderbirds, the demonstration team for the Air Force, used to fly this. Now they fly F-16s, but that's the one they used to fly.
Mm.
Difficulty is just like you said, that looks intimidating. So
Mm.
a brand new student that comes to me, I'm the instructor, they're scared to death. So like they're like, and so what I have to do is I have to convince them that their job is to learn how to fly that. My job is to save their life. So there's this trust. So
Mm.
you have
So
to
if they
trust.
screw up, you've got their back kind of thing.
And
Like,
I do it 1,000 times. I've saved in my career as a pilot, I've got like 15,000 hours in all these different airplanes. I've saved so many thousands and thousands of lives, you wouldn't even know it. Pilots save lives on a daily basis. We, right here, identify things as they're happening, wind shear, bad decisions other pilots are making, and we save lives every day. So there's that. But I think the one, the number one difficult thing is when I have a student pilot in my airplane and we're in formation, and then there's a student pilot in the other airplane by his or herself. So I've got a student in my plane and a
oh,
student in the other plane in formation. And the wingtip clearance is about 3 feet. So
what? Three
yeah,
feet?
seriously,
Why? That's
because
terrifying. I'm scared just hearing
well,
about
no, but you do formation for mutual support and protection, just like you and me being friends, like you and I are friends. What do friends do for each other? They mutual support and protection. I support you, you support me. If I see you doing something that's going to threaten you, your physical self, your financial self, I call you and say, hey, just so you know, you might want to rethink this, right? So friends are friends because of mutual support and protection. That's why we fly in formation. Because
Wow.
if you need help, I'm there for you. If I need help, you're there for me. That's what a formation flight is about. Um,
Wow.
so, so the thing about flying in formation,
But then you can bump into each other too, couldn't you? Or could you?
well, and that's
Wow.
that you asked me what the scariest thing was. We were
Yeah.
doing what happens is you have a close formation, which is when you're close, but
Mm.
then you can send the other person out like, a mile away, and then they do a rejoin on you where they position the airplane to come back into your close formation. That's in this case like a turning rejoin. So I tell them the solo student that they can come and rejoin my wing. But in this one case, I knew the student couldn't see me. And if they can't see you, they're supposed to break out. There's a procedure for breaking out. And I told the student, do you have me in sight?
Breakout as in leave formation if they can't see you.
So like, this is my airplane
Yeah,
and this is his airplane.
yeah.
Well, the thing is, he was so out of position and he was banking that I was literally under him in the turn. So he could not see me. And I knew he couldn't see me.
Oh,
And he was
oh,
tracking, and he was
yeah, because
tracking that.
it's like underneath, there's no visibility underneath.
Yeah, I'm looking at his belly. I know he can't see me. So I basically asked him, "Can you see me?" He said yes, which is not true. And I told him to break out, and he didn't do it. So automatically he failed the ride just by not listening to the instructor. But
Yeah.
he continued to converge, and it got to the point where instead of him breaking out, I had to break out. So I literally had to do like a barrel roll. He was converging on me. If I didn't do something, it would have hit us. So
Oh,
I took the airplane from my student and I literally did a barrel roll around him to keep him in sight as he overshot past me, and I rejoined on him. So I just,
whoa.
I didn't want to talk pilot stuff. I thought we were going to talk about other stuff, but
Pilot stuff is
what's
cool though. I
well,
think pilot stuff is so interesting because there's deep, deep metaphors.
yeah, there are a lot of metaphors. And so what I told this person, the student that I just failed on the ride, was this ride is over. This sortie means this formation flight. The sortie is over, and we're going to RTB, which is return to base. And
Mm.
so I let him lead, and I flew out on a route formation for him. So I gave him some distance. I told him the ride's over, and we debriefed when we hit the ground. Now,
Yeah.
um,
Oh, that is powerful. Wait a second. That was so powerful. Okay, I want to make sure the listeners caught that because you did so many things in that. You set some boundaries for safety, right? For your
oh,
safety as well
absolutely,
as for his. You let him lead, correct? And you followed him. So you let him lead, you let him keep his dignity, even though he just screwed up in a way that could have killed him or you, correct? Did I read that
yeah.
right?
Well, and that's a really interesting interpretation, and I admire you for that. The truth is, um, at that point, he was shaken up
Yeah.
because he
Yes.
realized that he almost brought us both down.
Yeah.
He was shaken up. He had just failed the ride because I told
Yeah.
him the sortie's over. We're going back. So he knew it was
Yes.
over. And I wanted him to be out front so I could fly relevant relative to him instead of him
Yes.
relative to me. Because I wanted to keep my eyes on him because I've
Yes.
got a solo student plus I've got my student. So those are the types of things that they're difficult decisions to make when it's happening because out in when you're flying, you're doing 400 miles an hour. So it's like things happen very quickly. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
you don't have a luxury to sit there and say, what should I do? You just you make the decision, and
Right.
but you always do safety first. Like
Yes.
there's an adage in the pilot world that says there are old pilots and there are bold pilots, but there are no old bold pilots. In other words, you can be bold
Oh, but stupid.
but stupid, right? If you
Okay.
if you're a stupid pilot, you're going to there's a good chance because I've had many pilots that were really good stick and rudder. They're really good technical people, but they
Yeah.
made stupid decisions and they're no longer with us. So,
Whoa.
safety is always, always first.
I
When I
love
was up
that.
in Michigan, I had
Yeah.
one of the chief pilots I flew for wanted me to take an airplane. It was this particular airplane, and it was winter in Michigan, so the tail de-iced. There's a system that de-ices the tail. Well, the tail is important because that's what keeps you in level flight. But if the tail ices
Mm.
up, you can nose over. So
Ooh. Show that
there was
again. So if the tail ices, what happens? What does that mean? Nose over. Show us with the plane so I know what the heck you
well,
mean.
what happens is
Please do
this:
it.
the plane wants to stay in balanced flight, right?
Okay.
The center of gravity for the airplane is right about here.
All right.
The center of lift is right here. So what
Huh.
happens is this wing because it's not pushing exactly where the center of gravity is. It wants to push the nose down. So the tail section is actually an upside down wing. So it's the same wing here, but it's upside down,
Yeah.
which pushes down just a little bit, like a teeter-totter, right?
Uh-huh.
This wing is going to make the nose want to go down. This wing pushes down just a little bit so the plane can stay in level flight. Well, if this wing starts to ice up, it loses its lift, even though the lift is down. It loses its lift, which
Oh.
means the nose wants to tip over, which is not a
Oh.
good thing. You want
Sounds pretty
flight.
bad.
So
Yeah,
so
yeah.
what I'm sharing is that um, the idea of not having tail de-ice is a bad idea. And this chief pilot wanted me to take the airplane in known icing conditions without tail de-ice. I said,
What?
I know. So I
This was
said,
someone who was above
this
you.
is
This was a
the chief
superior
pilot.
chief
So I
pilot.
said,
Wanted
if
you
you're
to do something very dangerous, correct?
telling me this plane is flyable in these conditions, then you fly this airplane and I'll fly the other one.
I love that. Yes.
Well,
Woohoo. High five.
except
Yeah.
for shortly thereafter, I was fired. but
Ooh.
I didn't fly the bad airplane, which
But you were
again,
alive.
look, if it's that good, then you fly it. Put your
Mm.
put your safety, put your butt where that doesn't sound good. Put your butt where your mouth is. But 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 no,
Walk your talk, I think is yeah.
but there's just so
But
many, when
yeah,
we
it's like
talk
put
about
your money where your
aviation,
mouth is, but yeah, use your ass kind of thing. Like
yeah,
yeah.
if you ever want to not get a word in edgewise, get about 4 or 5 pilots talking about flying, and it's game over. The sun will go down, the sun will come up, and they'll still be talking about aviation. So, but
Yeah.
but I just want to double back to you and your efforts. I admire you for picking out the metaphor because I use aviation metaphors for almost everything. I'm working on some training modules on a project right now. It's a launch pad. I talk about launching and landing and having a
Mm.
destination. Like you're never now once going to jump into an airplane and strap in and take off and go, okay, where are we going? No, you want a pre-flight. You want to plan where you're going. You don't just jump in the airplane and take off and then figure it out. That doesn't even
Not a
make
big
sense.
airplane. Do people ever
Not
do that
any
in small
airplane.
airplanes? Not any airplane. Yeah,
Well, I
you need to
mean,
know the landing space. I guess you
well, I
never
mean,
do that.
you could do it in like if you just wanted to stay in the traffic pattern, but you already know your destination is right where you take off. So,
Yeah.
but you still know. So,
Yeah.
but I like what you're doing. I appreciate your project. What's next for you? Like I know you're interviewing me, but I'm just curious because it sounds like a really solid project.
Thank you. Well, for one thing, I would really love to co-consult with you and to create online courses possibly as well. Possibly combine those two things as a way of funding the first kind pride communities around the world and saving more lives of LGBTQ youth. So yeah, I'm open to anyone who is interested and who has enjoyed this interview and you want to take your business to the next level. If you are a leader, if you are an executive, if you are a VIP, you're a celebrity, you want to learn how to launch your dreams, make your dreams soar. If you have any and it could be personal and or professional. If you want to make your dreams soar, I think between Dr. Tia Jolie Phillips and me, we can create magic for you. So I would love you to like, share, subscribe, and click below, and we can set up an interview and see if we're meant to work together more. So thank you so, so much for watching. Is there anything else that you would like to share, Tia, before we wrap up for now?
Well, I just think that the one thing that there's almost always this one thing that keeps people from going to their next level. And I would say to anyone listening to really evaluate that one thing that's keeping you from going to your next level and ask yourself, is that one thing true? Or is that some falseness, some false belief that I have, some lie that was perpetrated upon me years ago? And it's just not true, because you're absolutely amazing. You're powerful, you're beautiful, you've got resources. And sometimes whatever's keeping you from going to that next level, um, really challenge that, because the odds are that once you're past it and you just get past it and look backwards, you'll see it's actually not there.
I loved what you said earlier, and I just realized I haven't even asked you Love's $1 billion questions yet. Would you like those before we wrap up?
What a great way to wrap up.
I got so into it. I totally forgot. Normally I start
All
like that,
right. No,
but
sure,
we
go
already
for it.
know each other. So how about we finish off with that? So if you could inspire and empower over 1 billion people with just 2 words, what would you say?
I would I would like them to truly comprehend these words, but you're lovable. You're
That is
lovable.
beautiful.
That
You're
I would,
lovable.
that's one of the toughest lessons to learn, because we all have a double standard, because I can love everybody, I can love everybody. When it comes to loving yourself, a lot of people they got to get past that. Get rid of the double standard, love yourself as you would love others.
Yes, exactly. That's
Yeah. 'Cause
that's the new
no,
version of that old cliche that we need. We need to do it the other way. A lot of us have taught
but,
people
but,
not to love
but
others,
think
but love
about it.
ourselves.
The verbiage says love others as you love yourself, but you can't give something you don't have.
Exactly.
So if you're pretending to love others, but you can't love yourself, you must love yourself first
Yeah,
as a precondition of being able to love others fully,
exactly.
completely.
So,
So
what is your number one surprising new secret in 5 words or less?
surprise, what's that? The surprising new
What's your
secret?
surprising new secret in 5 words or less?
Um, that's a good question. There's a lot of secrets, but I think that, let's see, we are all totally free. We
Nice.
are all totally free. And it's
We're
really
all
not a
totally
secret.
free.
We are all totally free.
And
We
who do
like
you
to
help
think,
in 5 words or less? And then we'll come back to this. So I'm trying to do
what was the last
the
question?
boom, 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 rapid fire. Who do you help?
I help any who want, all who want to be helped. Oh, that's not five.
All who
So
want help.
anybody who wants to be
And what
helped.
do you help them to achieve?
So my goal is to bring forth heaven on earth. So I help them achieve health and wealth. I help them achieve health and
Health
wealth.
and wealth.
That's
Beautiful.
that's what I do.
And I think I won't ask you how LGBT friendly are you? I think we've covered that one. Is there anything else you
Well,
want to say about that one? Besides the
well,
fact that,
I started Jupiter Pride, so you can't get more supportive than that. So
right? Exactly. And is there anything else that you would like to share? What did you think of the masterclass at speakinspire.com?
I thought your master class was very thoughtful. I think you put a lot of effort and thought into it, and I'm excited to see it develop and grow. I think as it gets traction, it's going to morph and change, and kind of it'll become. It's kind of like when you have a brand new glove. When you first put it on, it's like, oh, this is a brand new glove. But then after a while, you don't even realize you're wearing it. So I think that as more and more people become comfortable with you and your project, I think that it's just going to take on a life of its own. And I'm excited to watch it.
What was your favorite part of it? Or what was the part that you related to the most from it?
I always relate to selflessness. I mean, yeah, I know, love yourself, love yourself before you love others, but we need more people to do selfless things. Like this is not a world of, I mean, this has been traditionally a very zero sum game. I must beat you so that I can take all of the pieces on the board, or, this thing. I think there's a way we can all win. And I think that the idea of being selfless, it's a time, the time is overdue for us to say, okay, look, I've got what I need. Let me just give of myself from my personal abundance so I can help others have what they need to get to. So I think the whole kind of the unwritten part of what you're doing is one of service. And I
Mm,
think that that's going to be I use the term sexiest. If that's going to be the sexiest part of what you do is the selflessness that's kind of the undertone of your project.
mm. Well, I'm hoping that I can balance that because that has been my biggest mistake. When the former Mute Girl inspired millions, I didn't have a plan to make it sustainable. Whereas now with the Kind Pride communities, there is a plan in place so that it can be sustainable for everybody involved. So that it's kind of like I was always taught you have to give, it's better to give than receive. And now, after I gave on that Mute Girl Inspires Millions project, and you do need to think beforehand. It's like what you were saying about you need to know where you're going to land, right? I didn't have a plan. I just created this group. I bet we can find 1 million people who support same-sex marriage. I didn't expect it to take off so quickly. I was just kind of, oh my God, click refresh, 10,000 more people. What's going on? I wasn't ready for it. So I didn't have a way of creating income from it like I do with the Kind Pride community. So yeah, I think it's sort of like breathing. You need to inhale and exhale in balance. And if they say, oh, you have to just give, that doesn't work. That's called asphyxiation, isn't it? Something like that. You need to breathe. You need
Yeah,
to
well,
breathe in and
I
breathe
think
out.
the money is going to follow good ideas. That's been my experience. Money always follows good ideas. And so I
Yeah.
think your idea is a good one, and I think you're going to have abundance.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I would love to create these all around the world. So anyone who's interested in joining that dream, or you are welcome to like, share, subscribe, and click below. Thank you so much, Tia. It was
You're welcome.
wonderful. I loved your stories. They were so exciting, and loved learning about being a pilot. And
Sounds good.
awesome. Thanks
Okay,
a
thank you so
million.
much.
Thank you.